Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3TR. Welcome to another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer all the questions that you guys have sent me over the past week. We got I guess a semi-decent number of questions. However, before I get into these questions that I will be going over in this video, be sure to check the comment section of the last video if you sent in a question but you don't see it in the video, because chances are I answered it in the comment section, and I seem to have been getting a lot of those. Like, some of these answers are just like maybe one word one word responses, so I just don't think that's enough to justify going to the trouble of editing them in a video, so it's just easier to answer them in the comments. But jumping right into the first question, coming from Mr. Eric C. And he wants to know, what are some games that are popular but I've never played? Let's see. Never played Tekken, but I don't like it. Didn't play Witcher, didn't seem interesting. Never played Project Gotham, not an Xbox person, never will be. And those just, throw off the top of my head, just, popular games I've never actually played or been interested in. Next question comes from Good Neutral Evil Cat. She wants to know, would I be excited for a condone a Devil May Cry movie? No, let's stop. Let's stop with these video game based movies. They don't do anyone good. The idea of a video game movie now makes no sense. Like, I would prefer to control these characters than seeing them do their own thing. I think that this idea would have worked back in the 80s and the 90s when games were not very cinematic. But we're living in an age where games are so cinematic, they can tell better stories in ways that movies never could. So if anything, video games can tell movie-based stories better. So why would I want to waste money seeing them in theaters when I can control them and actually have influence on the direction of these stories? I just, at this point, they're not necessary anymore. But that's just my opinion. Next question comes from Phantom Cities, who wants to know, if the Dead Space series came back, would you like a sequel or a reboot? Which is like kind of a summary of each question. Hopefully it's a sequel. I think that with the ending of Dead Space 3, they kind of left it open for one more. But I think if enough time passed and no one would really want to see the Isaac Clarke story continue, I think you could do a reboot. Just to see the franchise come back in any form would be enough for me. The next question comes from Gum Gum Dukin. I guess it's supposed to be like a play on maybe a Street Fighter word. But you want to know, with Sony not being allowed a chance to make another Spider-Man movie, how do I think this new Spider-Verse without Spider-Man will do? Okay, number one, that's very incorrect in saying that Sony cannot make another Spider-Man movie. Of course they can. Sony still, a lot of people are very, very confused about this whole MCU thing, but the truth is, Sony still owns the rights to Spider-Man. They can make a Spider-Man movie anytime they want. In fact, I would personally prefer that they would make their own Spider-Man movie. It's like you have your MCU Spider-Man and you have Sony's Spider-Man. I would not have a problem with that. And we were having Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse movie, animated movie, come out later this year that has multiple Spider-Men in it. So that statement alone is incorrect. And another thing that's also incorrect is that the next Spider-Man Homecoming movie, that's the last Spider-Man movie that they have a deal with Disney. After that, Sony can decide that they don't want Spider-Man in the MCU anymore and just bring him back and put him in their Spider-Verse with their upcoming Venom. They can do that, and there's nothing Disney can do. Disney's just going to have to work around and say, okay, now Spider-Man's gone, and that will be perfectly fine. In fact, I would prefer he not be in the MCU. I do not like Spider-Man in the MCU. I just do not like what they're doing with my personally favorite solo Marvel character of all time. I do not like what they're doing with him at all. So I would prefer, listen, I love the Sam Raimi films, despite the third one being heavily flawed. And despite the problems that I had with the Amazing Spider-Man series, there was still a lot of potential to be great. And even in Amazing Spider-Man 2, there were things about that movie I really, really liked and thought had a lot of potential moving forward. I think Sony just trying to jump the gun, and everyone was trying to copy Disney Marvel's model because they're trying to copy them. And I think that was a big mistake. They should have just focused on doing their own thing. But yeah, I'm fairly certain that we will be seeing another Spider-Man movie from Sony very, very soon. So yeah, and to be honest, Spider-Man Homecoming movie, that technically is a Sony product. That's from Sony, so that's a Sony Spider-Man movie. It's just connected to the MCU. But yeah, we're getting off topic. Next question comes from All-Star Gamerpunk. You want to know, why do I think that Sony is being dicks and not even considering to allow crossplay? Okay, number one, I don't think they're being dicks. I personally support not doing crossplay. Now, I do not play Fortnite, so if you're talking about cross-playing information, I can kind of see a point. But if you're talking about allowing gamers to play with other gamers that have other consoles, I don't support that at all. Why on earth, if I'm a PlayStation person, why on earth would I want to play with someone on Xbox? I mean, listen, I'm a hardcore Sony person. I have tried Xbox. I have tried my competition, and I have literally played the best game that system would ever spit out, and I was not impressed. I was thinking, that's my competition? Not impressed. So if you're talking, going back to the topic, if it's about the whole Fortnite, if you want to talk about information, I can kind of see where they're going. But if you're talking about cross-playing between consoles, I don't support that at all. I don't, like, why? Why would you want to play with someone on another console? I mean, it's weird. It's weird. I just think that the Xbox One is a vastly inferior product. And if I'm Sony, if I'm a PlayStation 4, and I know I'm better, and I've proven I'm better, we've got the better set of first-party exclusives, and we've proven that for 4 generations in a row, going all the way back to PlayStation 1. Nintendo is sticking to the same small group of exclusive titles that they've been using since the 90s, possibly going back to the late 80s, and that's worked for them. But we are constantly building new franchises, which is something that Nintendo and the Xbox have consistently failed on doing. So, as far as crossplay is concerned, heck, I don't really care, but heck, that's just me. If you want to play with people on the Xbox, that's fine, but heck, I have no problem with what they're doing. But if it's about the whole Fortnite thing, that's a whole other discussion. But I don't play Fortnite, so I don't really have an opinion about that. Next question comes from Will Williams. You want to know, which of the Resident Evil 6 duos, Leon and Helena, Kristen Pierce, or Jake and Sherry, do I think could beat Wesker 2-on-1? None of them. None of them. None of them could beat Wesker. And I know what you're thinking. It's like, wait a minute, so how did Chris and Sheva beat Wesker? They only managed to beat him because they injected him with the serum that forced his body to start breaking down and made him weaker. Had they not done that, then there's no way that Sheva and Chris could have beaten him. So if you don't take that variable out, if you leave that in, then I think there's a chance that all 4 of these parties could beat them. But if you take that out, there is no way any of them are going to beat Wesker. It's that simple. Next question comes from the only newbie that I can see, coming from Sick Kidman RE, and you want to know, is your series going to be gone for good after these 4 matchups? It's looking like it. It just the demand just isn't there, and I'm sorry if I'm despairing the sun's going down. The demand is just not high. Just from the performance of the series this year, it's telling me that people don't want this series to continue. And I know there's always going to be a small group of people that want to continue, but it's the whole thing of supply and demand. If the demand is low, then why waste time, effort, money, and resources to put into something that is clearly failing? So I'm going to focus and put all my work into these last 4 matchups. Once they're done, I can let it go, because there was a channel long before the Versus series was ever around, and I guarantee you this channel will continue to be around. Dang, I'm reading really, really dark. And let's see what else. The last question of the episode comes from, hang on, Silver Leonhardt 2099. You want to know which Final Fantasy game, in my opinion, deserves a sequel? I would like a sequel or reboot or update to Final Fantasy VI. I just think that there's enough you could do with that, and I would like to see the stories for these characters continue. And with that, those are all the questions that were sent in for this particular episode. I'd like to thank all of you guys for making this episode possible. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me before next Wednesday before I start filming the next episode, probably around noon. And also keep an eye out for your question, because if the question I think is too short and won't make for a good question for the next video, I'll answer it in the comment section. So I'll try to answer it immediately instead of waiting a couple days. And with that, that's all I gotta say. So again, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.